How an IVA affects you and your mortgage. Let's talk about that. Hey guys, it's Scott here from MoneyNerd, and today I'm diving into a pretty simple topic. How does an IVA affect you and your mortgage? Let's face it, debt can be nerve-wracking, and the fear of losing your home is something that I see in people all of the time. If this applies to you, don't panic. It's normal to be worried about losing your home. The good news is it will almost certainly be protected from creditors under an IVA. This is because you'll work with an IVA practitioner as part of your IVA, and one of the first things they'll do is go to court and get a guarantee that your house will be protected. I actually talked about this in my last video, but in this video we're going to go into way more detail. When it comes to IVAs in your home, there's a caveat that I need to point out. You may have to release some equity if you're a homeowner. That means you'll likely have to remortgage in order to pay a lump sum either at the start or at the end of an IVA. Whether you own your home outright or pay a mortgage, the same thing applies. If you do remortgage, you won't be expected to increase your mortgage by more than 85% of the value of the property. The new mortgage will also be assessed to make sure that it's affordable. If keeping your house is a high priority for you and you have more than 15% of equity, then an IVA is worth looking at. It's far from ideal to have to extend your mortgage repayments, but paying off a lump sum means that your debts are more affordable on a month-by-month basis. In the short term, that could make the difference between sleepless nights and money stress versus feeling that you're finally back in control of your debt. Remember, these plans give you a way out. As a side note, as I'm sure you're gathering, IVAs are not perfect for everyone. It's sometimes sold as the perfect debt solution, but that's simply not always true. At the end of the day, you need to work out whether an IVA is worth it for you and your personal circumstances and what you want to get out of life. There's no perfect solution out there when it comes to getting out of debt, and that certainly applies to IVAs too. Personal finance is best when it's actually personal, so I recommend speaking to an advisor to get more details on whether an IVA is right for you. As a rule of thumb, when assessing if an IVA is right for you and your mortgage, a lot of it comes down to how much equity you have in your house and your age. Let me explain that. So let's say there's two people. You've got John and you've got Jane. Give Jane some hair so you know it's Jane. In fact, let's write it. John, Jane. And John is 60 years old and Jane is 35 years old. And they both want to release £20,000 of equity to pay towards their IVA. So they're borrowing the same amount of money, but their retirement age actually makes a big difference. So John only has 5 years left of his retirement, but Jane has 30 years left. So when John comes to take out a remortgage, take out another mortgage, then his repayments over the next 5 years while he's employed are going to be huge over 5 years. Compared to Jane, when she remortgages her house and releases the same amount of equity, £20,000 of equity, she's got 30 years to pay it back. So her repayments are going to be comparatively a lot smaller over a longer time period. So that's just one thing to think about when you're assessing your mortgage and your IVA. By the way, if you're finding this content useful, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. Okay, so you might just be thinking about getting a mortgage or be years into a mortgage. Well, whatever stage you're at, you will be affected by an IVA. If you're already in a mortgage, then it's important to note an IVA can't cover your mortgage and it can't cover some other external debts like student loans. These will need to be paid outside of the IVA, so you need to keep that in mind when you're assessing your affordability. If you think you will have difficulties paying back other debts along with your IVA, then you need to speak to a professional for financial advice. Now, another thing I see people ask all of the time is if they can get a mortgage while they're in an IVA. The short answer is yes, you can, but it will be harder and more expensive for you to do so. And bad news for first-time buyers, it's almost impossible to do. One of the reasons I see people taking out an IVA in the first place is to reset their bad credit and wipe the slate clean in the hopes of getting a mortgage in the future. In most cases, it is better to complete your IVA before applying for a mortgage. Trust me, in the long run, it'll be cheaper and you'll be far more likely to be accepted once your IVA is complete. If you're thinking about getting a mortgage after you've completed an IVA, then it's important to note that an IVA will show on your credit report for 6 years after the IVA has finished. This means that your bank and other lenders will still be able to see that you've struggled with debt in the past, so there's a chance that that might go against you when you're applying for a mortgage. If you're already paying into a mortgage and you're looking to sell on for a bigger home and a bigger mortgage, then there will be consequences too. Once you enter an IVA, you won't have enough disposable income to cover a bigger mortgage payment on top of your monthly repayments. So that's something worth considering if you're thinking about scaling up in the future. As I've shown you, IVAs are not ideal for everybody, so don't fall victim to a salesperson who's trying to make a quick buck out of you and quickly sell you an IVA. It's not as simple as shaving off a chunk of debt. You'll be making sacrifices to ensure you change your spending habits to afford the repayments, and that might interfere with your mortgages, as I've highlighted in this video. Every mortgage application is different, so it's entirely possible you will find a mortgage that suits you, but because the challenges associated with it, you should always seek a debt advisor before going ahead with an application. It could save you a real headache in the future. With that in mind, there's lots of other debt solutions that you should know about, especially given the mortgage complications that we've just discussed. One example is a debt management plan. I've highlighted my top pros and cons with the debt management plan here, or if it's not showing there, I'll link it in the description below. So make sure you check out that before you jump into anything. And once again, thanks for watching. I hope it's been helpful for you. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video.